Okay, so here's a bit of a shop update. This T20 a couple of years ago, we had some issues with it. It threw a rod. So we fixed it up a bit, but it's not running quite right. So it's been sitting outside for a few years. It's probably been sitting outside probably 2 or 3 years now. It's a T20 International Crawler. And we have two of these. One's more original than this one. It's in fantastic shape. But the engine's seized on it. This one's running, but it's not running very well. It doesn't have good oil pressure. We had some issue with some oil pressure, so trying to deal with that at the moment. And we're working on this guy a little bit later on. And we just put up this door here as well. So it's kind of nice to have a door there now. And then we picked up this lathe about a month ago or so. No, it's got to be at least 4 or 5 months now, I guess. It's a little lathe. It's about a, 60 or 70 inch? Well, no, more than that. 4 or 5 foot almost now. So it's a pretty nice lathe. It's worn out a bit, but it's going to get thrown in the scrap, so we picked it up for fairly cheap, so it'll be a nice lathe. Biggest thing with this one is it's a bigger lathe, because the one that we have for threading metric right now, we have a really tiny lathe for threading metric. So we're going to work on this guy, get him hopefully running. If not, well, it's a nice base for a welding table, so that's what the other step is for this guy. The reason why it's so rusty, it's been sitting outside for a couple months before we bought it. So it's got a cam jaw for the chuck. We got to find a chuck for it if we're going to use it, if it's any good. We don't know what's wrong with it. It came with 2 electric motors, but the electric motors were out of it. So another thing that I've been working on is this lid for this socket set that we bought. I just had to glue the top board on again. It was pulled up and warped a bit, so I fixed that issue. Now I got to take all the clamps and stuff off, and then it should be good, and I can screw it back together. Another thing we have been working on is this water pump. It's a ajax. It's about a 1920s ajax water pump, which is really neat. I received this from a friend of ours that was looking to get rid of some stuff. So I thought, well, why not? I put new plug wires on it, and there's no water, there's no coolant lines or anything, so I made this one up just because I couldn't think of anything else to run the gauge off of and get water into the system. So this is the output side of the pump, so it runs the output into the water lines, and then it runs it into this gauge and then into my cooling system, and then I will just come and run out on the ground. And then at the moment I need to make a little find another one of these brass connectors so I can screw it into here, and maybe use some old hose that we have sticking around here, some old canvas hose, which is interesting. But I might also machine a thing to go in here for to accept water or garden hose thread, so that I don't have to deal with having a adapter and then just run the adapter right off the pump. It won't supply probably enough water, I don't think, but it should supply enough that it should run fine, because the aim of putting water in this thing is not only to cool it, but so that I'm not wearing the pump out too badly. Because I don't want to wreck the pump, because this thing's too cool to wreck. One major disadvantage of this engine is the fact that the fuel tank is leaking. I gotta get some fuel tank sealer, and then I should be able to fix that problem up quite easily. And I think one of the gaskets down here is leaking for the cylinders. I think 1 or 2 of them are leaking, which is interesting because I didn't do anything and it started leaking, so I don't know. And here's the tag. If the camera would focus, there we go. So it's quite an interesting little thing. This is the only one that I found so far. I've been doing a bit of research on them. So, another thing we just picked up is this planer, wood planer. It's a good sized little planer. We're going to use this for that, it's a 16-inch, but we're going to use this for that grain auger, because we don't have anything else to, we didn't have a big enough planer to do the boards, so now we do. So now we can work on those boards, finally be able to do that. And just jig-jogging and playing with some other stuff. And then, another thing that we just did is we reamed the tailstock on our lathe here, on our Cisco lathe. And then, where is the reamer? I don't remember. I don't know where the reamer is. But, yeah, we just finished reaming this guy out, the tailstock out, so it was in rough condition before. So now it's fairly nice. Because before, when you put your centers and drill chucks and stuff inside the tailstock, it would scratch it sometimes, and it would turn on the inside. So now hopefully it should be fairly tight. We've been fooling around with a little bit of stuff, and we got our chuck off. The chuck was stuck on the lathe, and so we took this little block of wood and used it and put it up against the in here and then bumped it. So that took that off fairly easily. And then, well, I say that we took the actual chuck off. We didn't use the forward chuck, or forward jaw chuck wasn't on it. It was this 3-jaw chuck that was actually on it that was stuck. The backing plate got stuck with some metal chips in between the threads and the spot where you thread it on. And then, yeah, so we got that off. So now we can use the 4-jaw chuck again, which is fantastic. We've been organizing and stuff, and I picked up this Rutler Boring Bar from an auction where we bought the threshing machine from. I've been just greasing it and working on it. The main bearing inside of here, where the main bearing in here is stuck. Inside this here. So we've been putting a little bit of pressure on it a little bit. I've been stripping the paint off of it so I can repaint her. So that'll be a fairly nice little guy. And then this is just the inside of it. But look at this brass gear. It's just beautiful. There's another one up down in the bottom too. It's just beautiful. Yeah. Just beautiful. Anyways, we've been busy working in the shop throughout this pandemic, so working on different projects. We're going to strip this drill press down in a little while. We just want the machine surfaces off of it. It's no good, the motor was completely kapooched. And then we've been working on our sawmill motor, which this isn't the one, but we swapped this engine for the other one because it has a clutch pack on it. And we couldn't put the clutch pack on this one because of this spline here has been roughed up and damaged too much. So we just decided to change the motor out. And the cylinders on the other engine were messed up, so we just took the whole top end off of this engine and stuck it on the other one. So, and it used to have a little 10 pieces around it with a kind of like a generator looking thing around it, but it wasn't quite a generator. We've been taking that stuff apart as well. And then the really big project, well, is this Sterling truck. So it's a 1929 Sterling truck, and we have been taking it apart right down to the block. So we're thinking about pulling the engine now to do these valves. These valves are really cool because straight on it says Waukesha. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Come on. Camera won't focus. Anyways, on all the valves it says Waukesha. But the cool part of this truck is it has an aluminum dash. Or not dash. Aluminum firewall and dash. Which is really interesting because it's in 1929, so it's quite it's fairly old, and it's rare to have aluminum back in those days. So we've been working on it. We've been trying to get it street legal. It has brakes and brand new tires. We're just down to the engine because the clutch was kind of rough to shift gears with, and the shaft in here is 2 pieces that runs through the transmission, so it was floppy. It was out of adjustment. So we readjusted it, and it's doing fairly okay now. You can shift it quite easily. So we're thinking about pulling the engine, putting it on a stand, and then fixing that, putting it back together. Right now what we were waiting for was pistons, because the pistons over here are not the right ones out of this truck. They are an aftermarket piston because they're built by Silvolite. So, yeah. Working on that. And then getting new piston rings. We're thinking about just sticking this piston back in and buying new piston rings and putting it back together. This is the other little lathe that we have. It just has it's a really tiny guy. It's the only one we can thread metric on, because this one, you could probably well, I don't think you can thread metric on it at all. But it's not as, well, it's a nice lathe, but it doesn't thread metric. That's the biggest downfall of it. That's why we have that big one now, too. But also this guy here is really nice. And then this truck, well, it's in good shape. It was running perfect until it blew a head gasket. So now we just went to replace the head gasket. But, yeah, that never helps. I gotta pull the head gaskets out of here. Here's the old one here, this box. But the new one's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Because it's all copper head gasket. It's a new old stock that we got out of, I think it was Edmonton that we got it out of. So, yeah. We've been busy. Past couple months we've been quite busy.